you represent veterans. Do a majority of veterans believe that this is supporting the rule of law in the United States and the Constitution?
The statement that the military is with the president on its own is pretty alarming because the military is supposed to be an apolitical force. By law, they are required to follow lawful orders and also by law required to refuse illegal orders. But the idea that the military stands with a political leader is antithetical to the way that we have oriented the military in this country, and for good cause. We want the military to remain an apolitical force, but this president has been hell bent on politicizing the military from the very first days of his administration. I mean, this feels like 100 years ago, but remember the military parade on Trump's birthday, the
Yeah.
rally at Fort Bragg, where he made extraordinarily partisan comments and actually sold partisan Donald Trump merch, all the way to Pete Hegseth, calling all the generals in to rail at them about his own political beliefs, and having that backdrop of all the generals sitting there, which I think may have backfired on him. I think he wanted that to look like they supported him, and it certainly didn't come off like that. To now, the statements that the administration is making about, the president, the military is 100% with the military. Look, like, veterans are reflective of American society. I'm not going to say that every veteran or person in uniform agrees with me, but we represent a broad swath of American society. We're from all walks of life, and that means our politics are different. But at the very end of the day, we all swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and the values enshrined in it. And the actions of this administration are completely 180 degrees away from the values that freedom of speech, a freedom of assembly, freedom of protest, all those things. And so I find it, there's a lot of polling that shows that Americans are not in favor of National Guard deployments in American cities. There's a new poll that was out today. I saw that 75% of Americans are against Trump's escalatory, imperialistic march towards war in Venezuela or in Greenland or wherever else is next. People want the military to be powerful and strong and used when it is absolutely necessary and a tool of last resort. And we want our troops and our soldiers and Marines and everyone else in uniform to be prepared to go fight bad guys and execute missions overseas, not to be turned inward, used against the American populace, used to intimidate and frighten and jail political opponents. That is what happens in Russia. That's what happens in North Korea. That is not what is supposed to happen in the United States.
So what happens if you're a veteran and say you create a videotape urging people not to break the law and to follow the Constitution, and Pete Hegseth would go after you? I know that sounds like a wild idea,
What
but
kind of
gee,
crazy hypothetical is that?
yeah, like,
Yeah, listen, I mean, look, what, just like on its face, there's tons of videotape. There's at least two videos that I've seen of Pete Hegseth prior to being Secretary of Defense talking about how troops have an obligation to refuse an illegal order. That is just a straight up truth. It's part of the UCMJ. It's a briefing that I went to officer candidate school at Quantico, and as part of your initial training, I remember sitting through the class where they talked to us about the UCMJ and our legal obligations under the law. And that's just a fact. Now, the fact that they've gone after Senator Kelly, and now, Alyssa Slotkin released something yesterday that
yeah.
she's under investigation for something related. The intent, they know they're outside the boundaries of the law. They know that there is no way to, they dropped the court martial because there was no grounds for it. Now they're going after this administrative censure. And whether or not they are able to do that successfully in this administration, I know Senator Kelly's filed a lawsuit fighting back. But the intent is to chill dissent. It is to send a signal to anyone who's ever worn a uniform that your voice doesn't. If you speak out, you might lose your benefits, you might lose your retirement paycheck. And just the mere act, whether or not they're successful, of targeting Senator Kelly and targeting Senator Slotkin may actually chill people's willingness to speak out. But it says a lot about what they think about veterans, how afraid they are of veterans speaking out, which is why it's so important for those of us who have worn the uniform to continue to do so.